Welcome, ladies and gents, to another BTNeanderthal video. Today, we're going to be talking about the character selection screen. Basically, the select a hero class. We have 7 characters here with the expansion to LOD. We have the Amazon. This is the, as it says here, skilled with the spear and bow. She is a very versatile fighter. So, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what actually happens with all these classes today, and like as far as through the progression of the game, starting at like level 1, and then level, 99 type of example. I'm not going to like go super in-depth, I'm just going to tell you what works and what people play with, and then we're going to go to the next character. So it's actually not going to be that long a video, it's just going to be covering what actually people play and what people do not play. There's really 2 options with the Amazon. You have like a Bozon, which is a character that just
Billy
uses
Druid
bows.
here with another fantastic TV offer.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you, Sempra. But basically, what happens is we have bows, and you're just attacking things with the bows, right? And whether it's an elemental bow or it's a multi-shot where it's attacking a bunch of different things, ultimately, unfortunately, in LOD, it is not very good. Bozons, they take some experience, they take a lot of gear, it's kind of difficult to use. Javazon, on the other hand, is actually, or the ones that use Jav and Spear skills, are actually like the strongest character in the game. Like, as far as just being able to dish out DPS, it is crazy strong. So usually what you do is you start off, like, you either play with poison javelins, you start off with the poison javelins and you just jab things and kill things with dot damage or damage over time, and then you go into like lightning later on. And lightning Javazon, like I said, has like the highest DPS in the game. It's crazy, basically, like how fast you can clear out screens. It looks like a hack. So Diablo 2 is not a balanced game, so that is something to be aware of. If you choose things that are other than what I'm like recommending and saying, it's going to be a difficult time. Doesn't mean it's impossible, it's just going to be difficult. There are combinations that are actually impossible, though, I will say that. So this is not a video that we're going to go super in depth of the skill trees. I will make that for each one of the classes in the future, but I just wanted to cover really quickly the Amazon. So the next character is going to be the Assassin. And the Assassin, this one uses martial arts and traps. Martial arts, I'm just going to tell you straight off the bat, this is actually trash. Like, martial arts are really bad. I like a Bozon. Like, unless you have gear and experience in the game and you know what you're doing, it's very difficult to actually get anything done with martial arts. Would not recommend. Traps, on the other hand, is one of the strongest builds in the game, and that's usually what people play. There's like fire and lightning traps that people usually do, and you basically place them down, and they do attacks against the monsters, and that's how it works. So that's how traps work. They're very good. I actually like the gameplay. This is probably my favorite, and one of probably the easiest classes to go through the game if you play a traps in, and being able to deal with everything. I find it a lot of fun. It's my favorite to go through hell, like I said. Traps in, very good build. Then we have the Necromancer, and this one like does summons and curses and shoots magic bone spears, and also does like poison damage, more dot damage over time. Now the Necromancer is it's in an interesting place. Necromancer is very difficult to actually get through the game by yourself. It's not impossible, you can definitely do it. Bone Spear, I'd say, is probably one of the best options to get through the game, with a combination of maybe some summons and some corpse explosion and stuff like that. Some different skills that it has, and we'll get more into that later, and the next time I cover the Necromancer. But basically, you summon things, and those pets and summons deal the damage for you. They're not very good AI, I will say, and it's really not good until like endgame. You can do basically any content with them once you actually know what you're doing with them. Bone Spear is probably your best choice, and then Poison is a very strong build, also endgame related though, not something you want to go through the game with. And then Curses is just a support thing. You're not gonna really do main damage with Curses. Curses are just kind of added to the fight and help your teammates out, but you can't just play Curses by yourself. There's no damage dealers there, other than like Iron Maiden, which does reflect damage and some other things. But I don't want to get too much into that. I just want to talk about the Necromancer itself. Then we have the Barbarian. Now this Barbarian is probably one of the hardest classes to start with and actually play through the game by yourself. Now if you have, but this has probably the highest cap of any character in the game, or actually has the highest cap of any character in the game as far as best magic finder out there, and very fast and very, you know, it's extremely item dependent, and when you start off you don't have items. The other thing is it's very good with war cries, so it's a good melee class, but only when you have gear. There's something called war cries, which is like you'll be able to buff your teammates, you'll be able to be a support character, you'll be able to debuff enemies, you'll be able to do some other actions like you kill a monster and something called item find. You can use that and have a chance to find an additional item off the same monster you already killed. Very, very useful tools. It's a very versatile class. Again, it has the most potential of any class. It's crazy. So Barbarian is good to have. It's very difficult to start with though, and the only way you really want to start with it is if you have a team with you that can help you get the gear. But you will help the team in great ways with the Barbarian. So yeah, that's pretty much what I want to say with that. And then we have the Paladin, which is my personal favorite class. I like the Assassin the most for like running through the game, but as far as end game and where you usually get you know, all the end game stuff, the Paladin specifically, which you may have heard of, the Hammerdin, is my favorite class and build and all that stuff. I absolutely love the Paladin. This is what I know the most about, and I've, you know, committed a lot of time to learning. So the Paladin has several different ways to attack and deal damage. It also has ways to help out the team. It can be a support class. We have auras that are just kind of like passives that you leave on your skill bar that will allow different effects to happen. Either help your teammates out or debuff enemies. So that makes them weaker, and that's in an area. That's just a passive that's happening in an area. So that is something with auras. You will pretty much always have an aura. It is a very tanky build as well. So there's something called like Holy Shield, as you can see in the graphic here, or an animation. He has holding a shield. There's something called Holy Shield there, which allows you to become extremely tanky in the end game, especially not necessarily through the playthrough of like going through the game, like through Hell Bale. That's what I'm talking about. It's like, you know, there's normal, nightmare, and hell in this game, and there's 5 acts, right? So you go through the 5 acts, normal's done, you go through the 5 acts again, nightmare's done, you go through the 5 acts again, and then hell's done. So what I'm trying to say there is basically this is not the best class to go through hell. It's not the fastest. It can do it, but endgame, it's very strong. It's very strong. So some other things that it can do, it can melee. It's probably the best all around for every situation character in the game once it's geared. You can kill the hardest bosses in the game. You can kill a lot of monsters because there's very little immunities. Yes, there are immunities in this game to like certain elements. It is possible to break some of them. We will talk more about that once we get more in depth with this. Again, this is character class, character creation stuff that I want to focus on. So we have melee, We have auras to help and support the team or debuff enemies, and then we also have like magic skills and casting skills that that the Paladin does, and they do big damage, big damage. So that's the Paladin. Before I move on to the Paladin, I tell you it's my favorite. It's what people would say the most OP class is. I don't think it's the most OP class. I think the Amazon is, with the damage output in comparison. It's crazy, but there's immunities with the Amazon, whereas there's really like no immunities to the Paladin. There are some, but very, very extremely low amounts of immunities. So that's one reason why it's very strong. So, Sorceress. Now this is the class that you basically want to start with. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Like, you can start with whatever class you want, but like, this is the one that gets things done. Okay? If you want to start off a class, you want to start Sorceress. And the reason for that is because of a skill that she has called Teleport. And now there is the opportunity in the Ultra Endgame for every class to get Teleport, but this one at level 18, which is very early in the game, because it's 99 levels, at level 18 you get Teleport. And with that being said, Teleport is the most broken, strong skill in the game. You can teleport through walls, you can teleport as wherever you put your mouse, or wherever you put it, like, I guess a controller, because people are going to be playing controller now. You can teleport through walls. You can go far. You also have something called telekinesis, which will allow you to pick up things with your mind from a distance. It doesn't include like all items, but it includes like potions and gold and you know, keys, various things like that. That can be helpful. Also, like, you know, moving around in town, you can telekinesis waypoints. It's very good. But the teleport is the main thing here. That is why the Sorceress is so strong. Just the mobility and the ability to go to places faster than any other class in the game. At least in the early stages. So there's 3 types of skill trees she has, and that's fire, lightning, and ice, as you can see on the top. Fire, all the elements have their place. Lightning is probably the most popular endgame. I personally like cold or ice in the endgame. That's my favorite. And fire is very difficult. It does good damage, but there's a lot of immunities to fire in Diablo 2, and it's very difficult. She's a very squishy class, so unlike the Paladin, she will fall over. There's a very high skill cap on the Sorceress, but that doesn't mean you can't play it. There's always softcore and hardcore. You don't have to play hardcore. And what hardcore means, just quickly going over this, is when you die, you lose your character and everything in its inventory. So that is that's rough on hardcore for sure. You don't have to play that. Obviously, there's a check mark down here. And then an expansion character can also be selected, which I will move this thing real quick. So we have expansion character, as you can see, check mark. These, so except for the assassin and the druid, so this class and this class, these were the 5 that started with. So as you can see, if we select like the assassin, I can't unselect the expansion character. These 5, so these 4, and then the Amazon were the original starter characters. So, you know, you can play an older version of the game. I honestly would not recommend that. I'm not going to be catering to any of that stuff or any of that information. I'm going to be talking strictly about LOD. So, yeah. So the Sorceress, cold has like this chill effect, and it will slow monsters down. It does good damage with some builds as well. And then fire is kind of the same thing, where it does good damage, but it doesn't have any other extra effect. It's good DPS. It's very consistent damage. It's just only when you come across immunities, you can't do anything, so you have to teleport by them or past them. Lightning, like I said, in endgame is very strong. You have almost no immunities once you're in the ultra endgame. You know, like have your different items that break immunities and stuff like that in the endgame. but I would not recommend leveling necessarily with lightning, except for maybe, you know, in normal. And I'll break all these things down for each class in the future. So, and then we have the Druid. And the Druid has like 3 main things. It's mostly just 2 actually, and that is elemental things, so like things you can cast with the forces of nature, as it said. And those are the strongest, I'd say, as far as like what the meta is in Diablo 2. And meta is most effective tactic available, and what people play and all that stuff. So elemental, you can use like physical hurricanes and cold damage, and you can use fire damage and fire skills, stuff like that, and you'll be casting those as a caster. And then there's also the shape-shifting form, which is heavily gear dependent. I'd say it's not something you want to start with, and people don't really use it until endgame, but it is pretty good. But again, endgame stuff. And shape-shifting means like you turn your character into something else, like a different form, like a bear or a wolf, and those gain different bonuses. So that's something that should be you know, recognized as something that you don't want to touch necessarily until endgame. There are some scenarios where you do want to play shapeshifting early, but that is more higher and or top level gameplay stuff. And then there's summon, which exists, but nobody really plays it. Ultimately, summon Druid is not really good unless you're doing a mod or, you know, something like that. Like, it has some aspects that you can use in the summon skill tree, and you can use them, but like, they're not really, they can support. There's something called the Oak Sage with this, which will boost all of your teammates' health around you, kind of like a Paladin aura, but like it's something you summon and that boosts your team. So that pretty much covers the classes. Again, we already covered hardcore and softcore, which is, you know, if you check this and you die, then that's it. And the expansion character, there'll also be something called, I believe, ladder character down there as well, which means you just play on the current season or the current content that's going on where everybody else is playing. What happens during the end of the season with your character is, say the season ends, it gets moved over to non-ladder. So similar to, like, you know, Path of Exile, if you played that before, or Diablo 3, you know, they have non-seasons and stuff like that too. So that pretty much covers the classes, what they do, how they work, and we'll be doing a much bigger breakdown of each class, and there'll be separate videos for each one of the classes for whatever one you are interested in and whatever one looks interesting to you. As far as the classes that you probably want to start with, it's the Sorceress. It's pretty much the way to go, like, because of the teleport. And then the meta characters, I'd say, like in the mid game, which means like you're kind of geared but not fully geared. You have things like the Elemental Druid, you have the Hammerden, and maybe some Zeal or Smite action, which is like melee stuff. And then the Barbarian can kind of just buff your team with war cries. The Necromancer is good for curses in group play. Solo summons, in mid-game you can actually do stuff with them. Same with Bone Spear. Probably not so much with Poison until you get specific endgame items. And then Assassin, this is just pretty much good all the time. Like traps in specifically, so use traps. It's pretty much good all the time, and I will delve into how to actually build your characters soon. Amazon, it's actually kind of a difficult class to start with, but you typically want to make one of these like later in the game and just actually plow through content. So are Zealot Pally good? Zealot Pally is okay. You're going to have a really hard time, though, in Nightmare. And in Hell. Like, as far as with no gear. Once you have gear, Zealot is really strong. It's just only good at single target, and that's an issue when you have casters that do huge AoE.